Do you hold your Bitcoin in a wallet, on an exchange, or even holding it in an ETF? In today's video, we're going to be breaking down IBIT, buying the Bitcoin dip. Now, for me personally, I do hold 5% of my portfolio in IBIT and really viewing it as the best way to hold cryptocurrency. Now, I have held it in cold storage, I have had it on exchanges, and I've had it now in my investment portfolio, which is the reason why I choose to hold it there, because of the security, because of the backing, because of the companies that are providing the protection for the cryptocurrency itself. So let's break this down a little bit. Now, when we think of the iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF, or IBIT, performed weekly at the beginning of the year, we have seen Bitcoin really, and a lot of people are thinking with President Trump taking over office, that the Bitcoin and overall was just going to skyrocket. Tech and growth stocks, we've seen the exact same. There has been a massive pullback looking at tariffs, looking at some of the liquidity, looking at, geopolitical issues, but also looking at the ability for a lot of people to say a lot of these assets were severely overvalued over the last 2 years. Now, in my opinion, like I said, the best way to leverage this is investing, if you do want to invest in cryptocurrency, into an exchange that offers. Now, there are a lot of different ones out there. There's some from, BlackRock. There are some from Grayscale. There are a lot of different Bitcoin ETFs out there, but specifically, I like this one. And when we start looking larger picture and looking at MicroStrategy, which is now known as Strategy, I'm really committed to a program of buying systematically Bitcoin in very large, significant amounts to really look at the upside of what we could see. Now, we know as of recently, GameStop has done the exact same. They are now kind of changing and shifting their model into more of the Bitcoin strategy. Now, thinking of the IBIT and the ETF price, it has doubled in the levels that it started trading in the beginning of 2024. So we've already seen it almost up 100% based on about the 12-month evaluation. And this is at $46.79 as of seeing this article. Now, the volatility, don't think it's as volatile as Bitcoin has become, and it was what it was really in the past few years. The big part is the ETFs. When we start putting regulation, when we start putting really the existence and the legitimacy of a cryptocurrency itself, this is where when financial institutions and companies are investing in it, that we really see it. So what exactly is the Bitcoin ETF? Now for this, it is very similar how we own a stock. I do hold it again as 5% of my portfolio, expense ratio of a 0.25, which I'm okay with. Some of these expense ratios for some of the Bitcoin ETFs can get very expensive. We've even seen upwards of 1.5%, which is even more than financial advisors really do charge. Now, it has almost $50 billion in asset within this ETF, making it the largest ETF by far. So you don't have to worry about liquidity like we see with some coins. And with the reputation of the company and the reputation of the company that backs it, which is BlackRock, should really continue the fund to continue to generate income. And as financial advisors are starting to put this into part of the portfolio, a lot of people are starting to get more competitive within this market base, including Grayscale. They released a Grayscale Bitcoin mini trust, which has a lower fee at a 0.15. But overall, when you look at really splitting hairs with those, it doesn't quite have the liquidity that we're seeing of this one. And for, a very low difference in the expense ratio, I would go ahead and invest in the IBIT. Now, when we start looking at the Bitcoin thesis, now this is something that I absolutely think and that I agree with. And when you start thinking about Bitcoin in general, the logic makes sense. Now, the way that they look at this is Bitcoin is not a stock. We know it is not a traditional stock. It is not a company that is owned on the market. It doesn't, it's not publicly traded. Bitcoin is also not a bond. So it's not a government bond. It's not, any bond that we know as it sits today. And it is not cash. Now, those three things that really dictate what Bitcoin is the reason why gold is what it is today. When we think of the similarities between gold and for Bitcoin, they have very similar criteria in the investing and really the asset class itself. And we're also seeing Bitcoin grow at a very rapid pace from looking at all the internet, the video streaming, looking at where everything it is. And President Trump has also noted that he just appointed someone to really make the United States the cryptocurrency of the world, or the United States as the crypto capital of the entire world, which is going to be pretty interesting to see. Now, the thesis allows and really talks about the potential upside of IBIT with the gold market standing about $21 trillion, meaning IBIT and these Bitcoin ETFs itself have about a 10 to 12x potential before it would fully take over gold. Now, people are saying within the next decade that we are going to see a lot more investments into Bitcoin, a lot less of investments into gold. So depending on your numbers, depending on how they are skewed and how many people and how many of these larger investment houses are putting money into Bitcoin ETFs could make a really big difference. Now, we know it seems like it's kind of difficult wrapping your head around having a company like Strategy, having a company like GameStop that is really in business to essentially take and build this with Bitcoin investors. When we look at Michael Sayer, and he is someone who I've followed for years, really clearing and making it very solely owning Bitcoin. That is the only thing that the company is going to do. With that, though, we are also going to see the appreciation of the coin itself if people and when people continue to buy this. Now, really the theory between and behind him building out this company, building out Strategy, continue to buy the cryptocurrency at an aggressive pace before the price gets too high. This is the reason why, as of right now, it stands nearly 100% up from where it was, creating stakeholder value in the company itself, issuing stock when you're buying the stock, not only the premium. I believe they also did a secondary stock using the funds raised by issuing stock to buy more Bitcoin, knowing that the price of Bitcoin is going to go up. Now, some people are also calling this an infinite money glitch, which is pretty interesting. They just issued preferred stock in January and they did the exact same in March. So literally they are giving out stock, and both of them came with high yield dividends. So they are giving part of the earnings back through the acquisition of Bitcoin when it comes to this. And very important to note is that they can sustain a very heavy NAV premium due to the seller of Bitcoin backed by those financial securities and by the CEO, which again is pretty interesting. So all bubbles. And a lot of people say that Bitcoin and really cryptocurrency in general is still going to be a bubble, that it could be based on the greater fool theory. I'm hoping that someone else is going to pay a higher price for what you're paying today is the only way that it goes into really increases in value. Even when we start looking at larger Ponzi schemes, kind of what we've seen before. Now, looking at Strategy, they own over 2.5% of Bitcoin today, and it is rapidly growing. They are looking at the company saying owning 5, 10, even 20% of Bitcoin in its entirety, which is kind of crazy to think. That's a really, really big scale with a very large number. In conclusion, guys, when we break down this article from Seeking Alpha, more and more institutions are adopting Bitcoin. A lot more financial advisors are starting to put it into portfolios. As it continues to grow, as these younger investors start getting into the market, start really working into mainstream, it's going to be a point where there is going to be a percentage of portfolios going into cryptocurrency, going into Bitcoin, and knowing the way that it's going and what we're really planning as a nation, even looking at global economy, having the ability to exchange and trade with other countries that do offer an exchange in cryptocurrency, we are going to have the coin here as well. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about IBIT. If you're investing, again, in holding that coin outside of a wallet, outside of an exchange, kind of cold storage, but also if you're holding it in the exchange or in the ETFs like I do. All right, guys, like I said, that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.